Does your OCD make you feel disgusted around food? We're going to talk all about it. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a therapist. I make videos for people with anxiety and OCD. And today I'm going to talk to you about disgust. Disgust in general is an OCD theme. It's an often missed OCD theme. And it makes you feel disgusted by lots of different things. And what happens when you have disgust-themed OCD is you start to avoid those things that create that feeling because your OCD tells you you're not going to be able to handle that feeling. It's too overwhelming. It's too uncomfortable. It may never go away. And so this can happen in all walks of life. But when OCD hooks its little claws into food, it becomes a much bigger issue because that fear of disgust will often start to impact your ability to eat. So let's talk about that. What does that look like? There is a lot of OCD themes that impact your ability to eat. But sometimes when you have OCD, all of a sudden you'll have a feeling that that food looks disgusting. It smells disgusting. It reminds you of something that's gross. It looks like something that's disgusting. And it will put you off. It might make you feel nauseous or sick. You might lose your appetite. You might feel like there's no way I can eat this now because it's gross, it's disgusting. You might look for things on your food that feel gross or disgusting. What's that dot there or what's that there? And it can change, morph, and shift depending on your day. But the overall theme is something is gross about this food and I can't eat it any longer. And for a lot of us, if there's something that's gross or the food smells weird or it just looks gross, it's not a big deal. But when you have OCD and OCD hooks its claws into that, it does become a big deal because OCD is never satisfied. OCD is never pleased. And so when you start to avoid eating certain things because you've had a bad experience or it feels gross, it will grow more. And so it doesn't stop with that one food. Then things are gross because someone's eating something nasty next to you, or something's gross because it reminds you of something else that was gross. And now maybe you can't sit with your family while they're eating because what they're eating is disgusting. Or maybe something touched something else and now that food is gross too. Or you had one bad experience with this particular food or it tasted off this one time and now it's disgusting and you can't go back. It balloons outward, and so more and more and more foods become off limits and your eating becomes more restricted, and so you're only able to eat a few things, and then those few things become less and less, and then you start to second guess whether you can eat those things. And I've seen a lot of people wind up losing a huge amount of weight, and some of them have had to been hospitalized because their brain just won't let them eat. So how do you untangle this? Well, there's an easy answer, but it's hard to do. The easy answer is OCD wants you to avoid. And so OCD will say, oh, this smells so weird, or oh, this looks like this, and that's gross, or this reminds me of this, and that's so nasty, and I can't have this, I can't eat this. And so it's fuel. The way that OCD gets fed, it's a good more metaphor, is by getting you to avoid. The more you avoid, the more OCD will grow, the more things you'll have to avoid, the more OCD will grow, the more things you'll have to avoid. You'll have a whole list of foods you can't eat, and eventually you'll only have a little list of things you can eat. So the easy answer, hard thing to do is to not answer OCD's call for you to avoid. And that might look like small baby steps. And so maybe if something's really disgusting or you've had this issue for a long time, it's not going to be fixed overnight. It will have to be worked on in very tiny steps. Are people around you having to avoid eating in front of you because it's disgusting? That's OCD's really big when other people can't eat near you, or they can't have certain foods near you, or in the house, or in the kitchen, or in the dining room. So you might want to start with that. Can you do exposures where they're eating those things and you're sitting there learning how to sit with your discomfort? When you learn how to sit with your discomfort, you're doing something in your brain. When you avoid and you constantly tell your brain, ew, I have to get out of here. I can't eat that. I can't see that. I can't do that. You are growing the neural highways in your brain. Those are the highways in your brain that make something happen and they make things stay around, right? Like if I'm learning how to speak a different language, I'm growing neural pathways. If you're learning how to ride a bike, you're growing neural pathways. If you are getting into OCD, you're growing those neural pathways, right? Good, bad, and ugly, neural pathways are just there. They're neutral. But when you don't avoid and you don't send the message to your brain that this food is dangerous, this food is disgusting, when I see this food, I need to flee, I need to run, I need to get away. When you don't send your brain that message and you're not growing those neural pathways, those highways in your brain, OCD gets smaller. It's uncomfortable and you have to sit with that discomfort without doing what OCD wants, which in this case is to avoid it. So start small. Maybe it's just sitting near that food. Maybe as you get better and you start to build your OCD muscles to handle discomfort, you can tolerate other people eating those disgusting things around you. And then maybe you have to bring it up a notch. And so maybe it's putting something on your plate that is your no-go food, something that maybe feels disgusting, and you just put it next to whatever you're eating. You're not going to eat it, but you put it next to it, right? You're building your muscles one small step at a time. And then maybe that becomes easy because the more you sit with discomfort, the easier it gets. And so once that becomes easier, then you might take that thing that your OCD says is, disgusting. You might take a low-level disgusting food, right? There are some that are like a 10 on a 1 to 10 scale, and there's some that are maybe like a 5. You take something low-level disgusting, and maybe you just smell it, and that's an exposure. And then when that gets a little bit easier, then maybe you bring it to your mouth. And when that gets easier, maybe you lick it. And when that gets easier, maybe you just put it in your mouth and then you spit it out. And when that gets easier, maybe you take a little bite and you actually swallow it. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm not doing a huge big step. I'm doing one small step at a time. And when you do that, you are crushing OCD because you are not avoiding, which is what OCD wants, which is what grows OCD. And you're training your brain that this food is not a life-threatening emergency because that's how your brain perceives it. When you feel really gross and disgusted and you avoid, your brain is registering that there is a safety issue, that you cannot eat this, and that when you are near this, let's hit the alarm bells because it's not safe. And we're retraining our brain. So super powerful stuff. Very hard to do, very difficult. But if you do it one small step at a time where you feel like you're in control, you feel like you're not being forced, it always is nice if you incentivize yourself by you're getting something, if your parent can give you bravery points or you can earn stuff for doing it. I know that's what we do at my house with my son who has restrictive eating. We make it fun and he earns stuff as he does food exposures. He wants to get better. He doesn't want to have, a restrictive eating, but it also adds a little bit of a fun element to say you can earn this or you can earn that for having that on your plate. We're moving up now where he can actually eat certain things. Obviously, he's improving, but we start off with a really small step and make it fun. So what could you do? What could you do? Maybe ask your parents what you could do, or if you're an adult, it's like just think out of the box of what can you do. That would be your first step. A lot of times OCD is very tricky and it will say, you can't do anything, you can't eat these things, it'll never happen. And you don't have to argue with OCD. You could say, okay, maybe that's true, but I'm going to start with something that's not too overwhelming. Maybe I'm going to have a bottle of something on my counter that is disgusting, and I'm just going to have it sitting there. I'm not going to eat it or smell it or taste it, but it's just sitting there. I'm going to just start with that. So what would be your first step? What would be a small baby step that you're willing to do? When you don't work on these things, the alternative is to live a life where your relationship with food is rough. To live a life where you can't go to restaurants, you can't travel, you can't go to birthday parties or hang out with friends and just relax and eat whatever they're serving. You have to always think about where you're going, what will be served, what can you eat, what can you not eat, what's your weight like, what's your nutrition like, because oftentimes when we have restrictive eating, it becomes a health issue when it's long term. And so a lot of kids grow up to adults who are not healthy and have illnesses because their immune system is weak, because they're not getting the nutrition they need. And they can't go places that they want to go without having to always think about food. So what motivates you, right? Even if there's other people around you that want you to get better and want you to work on it, it won't happen unless you realize that this isn't what you want to live with. This isn't something you want to deal with on a lifelong basis. You don't want to have this in your adult life where it's restricting your freedom and you're always having to think about it, because that's tiring and nobody wants that. So ask yourself, what's one small step I can do today? And see if you can do that. But I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do. If you want more in-depth support, I do offer much more in-depth support. I have a course, Crushing OCD class for kids and teens. I'll leave a link below. And I also have a new workbook called OCD Workbook for Kids, 50 Fun Activities using CBT and ERP. And so you can check those out. And I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do. I'll talk to you again next Thursday. Take care.